Good evening. Welcome to Reflections on East Granby. Today's date is January 16th, 2010. My name is Mike Malloy, and I'll be your host this evening. Our guest tonight is Dorothy Floyd Higgins, a 64-year resident of East Granby. She goes by Dot. Most of the people in town will know her by that. Dot Higgins. Okay, why don't we get started? Good evening, Dot.
Good evening, Tom.
Mike. There we go.
Mike.
It's okay.
Mike.
That's why I write stuff down. That's good. All right. So you were born in 1922 in.
You can advertise that.
What's that?
You're going to advertise that.
Yeah. Well, that gives it a perspective. That's why I asked you if you minded.
Okay.
1922. You never would have guessed it by the way you came up the stairs there. By the way, so you're doing something right. You were born in 1922 in Quincy, Florida.
Right.
Okay. You were born. Your parents' names?
Catherine Woodbury and John Floyd.
Okay. Did you have any siblings?
One sister.
Is she still with us, or is she?
She is not. She still is.
Okay.
She was married. She's died a few years back.
Okay. All right.
10 years younger than I.
What are your memories of your? Or how long did you? How old were you when you lived in Florida?
I was there until about 2 years old, and then after that, about every 2 years, we went back in the wintertime for a couple of weeks vacation.
Oh, good for you.
So we kept in tune.
Yeah, that's a good place to be in the winter. Yeah. So your early memories of Florida are probably pretty limited.
Right.
As in terms of actually living there.
Yes.
Yeah. So where'd you go from there?
From there, we lived in Hartford for a while, and we lived in South Windsor for a while, and we lived in East Granby for a summer, and
okay.
My dad was working on one of the farms there. I don't know what his job was. I was about 3 or 4 years old, so naturally it didn't mean anything to me.
So what he worked in tobacco, you mentioned, right?
Right. He was a, manager for the farm, I guess that's what you'd call it, overseer.
So you kind of carried along with him and your mom, and wherever they ended up, you and your sister.
Yeah,
right?
I was.
Yeah. So you moved from Florida. Which town did you move to first?
I think we moved to South Windsor first because that's where my grandfather was at that time.
Okay.
And Dad had a job with him in the shade tobacco.
Sure.
And as a result of being there, in that summer, we spent over, and as I remember it, of course I was not very old, so all I know is we were there summer in the cabin. That was quite a thing. What
were your first memories? What town do you remember first? Yeah, when you became aware of what was going on?
Actually, to know what I was doing, I suppose was West Suffield.
Okay.
And I had all my school years were there.
And what age did you move there? About approximately, would you say?
Beg your pardon?
What year? How old were you?
When we went there, I was there. I had to be 6 years old.
Okay.
Because I started first grade there.
Right. Okay, so you started they didn't have kindergarten back then. So
no kindergarten. You went in first grade.
Right. What school did you go to in Suffield?
Went from West Suffield for grammar school, and then to Suffield Academy for 3 years.
Right.
Then they built Suffield High School in 1940.
Now, where was the school in West Suffield? I know where there was a Stony Brook school in the center of town. Where was it in West Suffield? Do you remember?
Yes. You know where the Grange Hall is?
Right on Mountain Road.
Okay, that was that brick building right across from there.
Okay. So that was that was a one-room schoolhouse back then?
No.
No, they had multiple rooms? Really?
My Lord, we were more advanced than that.
Well, no, the reason I'm saying this is because I know that the Stony, the one that's on... was it Kent Avenue down that area? I think that was one big room at one point. So,
well, I don't know.
And my mother went to school there. This was in the 30s, so I happened to I actually have been inside the building. But anyway, so you were in West Suffield and you were attending that school, and you went there through what grades?
8th grade.
Oh, of course, they had to have separate rooms. Yeah, it wasn't just a elementary.
Yeah, and I think there were almost 2 grades in every room.
Okay. So, any memories of that?
Well, normal ones, I guess.
Yeah.
You know.
Nothing crazy.
Most kids have what you have in grade school.
So that was during the late 20s into the early 30s. That was when the Depression kind of
Yeah, in the 30s.
rolled in. Did that have much of an impact, those years? Do you remember? You were fairly young. But did things change much for you during the Depression or during the...
Well, I know nobody had much money.
Right.
I mean, that was number one. And we had a large population of Polish people and not Italian, Polish and Lithuanian people in West Suffield.
Okay.
I remember that because the names I had a hard time dealing with my mother on, you know.
A lot of syllables.
Right. She didn't always understand. She thought I was just saying something, you know.
Told you to pronounce it better.
Right. She had a little difficulty with that.
Yeah.
I had a little difficulty because I guess I sounded a great deal like a Southerner to them.
Okay.
That's all I heard at home, so naturally I was going to sound like that.
That you were both new to Northern English,
Right.
or Northern American, Yankee. But do you? Yeah, my mom actually picked up some Polish. There was quite a few Polish.
We
people.
learned quite a few words.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
we really can't use.
She still, yeah, right. She still knows. So, okay, so you're in West Suffield, and then you went to Suffield Academy.
Yeah, for 3 years.
And that was Suffield's high school until they built their own high school.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody went there.
Right.
From Suffield, and when we went, well, I take that back. Some of the people that lived on the outskirts of West Suffield, like Southwick,
Right.
when we went to Suffield for high school, they went to either Southwick or Agawam or, you know, wherever,
Really?
whatever they were closest to.
Yeah.
Then when they had built the high school in Suffield, that was 1940, well, we were all brought back into that school for the high school period.
Now, didn't they have was the Bridge Street School there? Was that like the center school? 'Cause the Bridge-
Yes, there was a Bridge Street School in Suffield,
Yeah.
but we didn't go there when we went to when we went. I don't know exactly how to explain it to you. The ones that took a college course had one room in, I guess it was part of what had been part of the Bridge Street School, because they had a new elementary school by then.
Okay.
Right in Suffield.
Right.
Right about where the shopping plaza is there, the A&P or
Right in the
Geisler
center.
or whoever's in there.
Right.
I guess it's really somebody else.
It's Highland Park Market.
Yeah,
now.
Highland Park.
It was A&P for years.
Yeah. So we were across the street in the school that was there.
Right.
And we had one room there, and we were taking a college course. I never got to college, but anyhow, I took the course.
Right.
And then we all went to the academy, or spread out again, one of the two.
Right. Right.
If we were really Suffield, well then, you know, we went to the academy.
Yeah. So you completed your high school there? You got your high school diploma in Suffield?
I got out of Suffield High School.
Good. Okay. So from there, you why don't you fill us in the intervening years from there forward? What were you up to? You graduated high school, and where'd you go?
Graduated high school and got a job. Luckily, there were very few jobs. Phoenix Mutual,
Where were they located?
Hartford, Elm Street.
Oh, okay.
And I rode into work at that time with a man who had initially come from Granby. He lived up in the north end of Suffield.
Okay.
Holcomb.
No kidding. Uh-huh.
And
It's an old name around here.
right. There were a group of us who rode down with him. He was a carpenter,
Right.
and he had to be in fairly early, so we were in there always on time. There's no question about that.
You carpooled.
Right.
Yeah.
Then when he went to Bermuda to work there, I guess they were doing a lot of building.
In Bermuda.
Then, by then I had my own car,
Okay.
so I drove.
Drove from Suffield to Hartford every day. Wow. What route did you take? What route? There was no 91.
No 91.
159?
187.
187, huh? All the way down.
Bloomfield, Hartford.
No kidding. Oh, that'd be West Suffield. You're right. Right straight down.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you worked there for how long?
Yeah, that I don't actually know. Probably maybe 2.5, 3 years.
Because the reason I'm asking is somehow you ended up in the Navy, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you were drafted, or did you?
Well, the war, came on, and
They didn't draft women. You said signed
no,
up.
they didn't draft us. We had to
They still don't
volunteer.
draft, right. So you volunteered to serve.
Right.
Yeah.
The waves. And we went to. We were going to go. Two of us were going to go in together. We thought.
Right.
But when she checked out for the physical before we went down, she had a heart murmur or something that knocked her out right there. Well,
Right.
I'd started the process and I wasn't about to back out, so
Right.
I went the rest of the route.
So you signed, and where did you
Well,
go?
then I was there. I wanted to go to New Hampshire,
Hmm.
and unfortunately I said that, and I wound up in Washington, D.C.
Okay. What was up in New Hampshire? What was it?
Well, a medical.
Oh, okay. Right. So
I thought that might be a pretty good opportunity.
fun place to be stationed.
But to Washington, I was stationed, and after about a week in Anacostia, they asked us what we would like to do, whether communications or telephone operators.
Right.
So the girl I was sitting by and I got to discussing that while we were waiting to do whatever was coming next.
Right.
She said, well, she thought she'd like to be a telephone operator. I said, I think I'll go for communications. We'll probably be sitting there right side by side, no
Right.
matter how you figure
Yeah,
it.
right.
What else?
Same department, kind of, right?
Yeah. Well, she went one way and I went another. I never saw her again.
Really? Yeah. So you were stationed. Where'd you go to be trained?
We were stationed out northwest Washington, right within the district.
Okay.
Nebraska, Massachusetts Avenue.
What did you do?
Well, for the first little while they checked you out to find out if you were apt to be a big talker about everything,
Right. Before they can trust you?
whether they could
Right.
trust you.
Yeah.
We transcribed information
Okay.
on cards. And after doing that for about 2 weeks, I guess they decided that most of us were okay and they would keep us.
Right. No spies.
Right. And at that point, I was transferred down to the photo lab.
Right.
And all the messages that came in, we the film that came in, we reproduced, made copies of,
Right.
and they were distributed within the building.
What were they pictures of?
Messages.
Oh, just messages. Okay. So messages coming from different parts of the world, going into the headquarters, and really.
And we got actually, I understood that the unit that was stationed there with us, the ones that we were supplying information to, broke the code, and that was part of our success.
Really. So you were intercepting, was it Japanese or German?
Yeah, Japanese.
Japanese messages, yeah. This was fairly late in the war, so it was more focused on the Pacific front at that point, huh?
I was there for Eisenhower's return,
Okay.
the parade.
Oh, really? Wow, that must have been exciting, huh?
If you weren't working that day, you had to parade.
Oh, you had to show up and be part of it. Yeah. Hey, worst things they could force you to do, right? Sounds like.
I don't know. We stood for hours.
Oh, really? It
Couldn't
wasn't
hear a darn thing.
wasn't all it cracked up to be, huh? Anyway.
But it was interesting.
So it must have been an interesting job, though, to see those messages coming in and.
You couldn't read them, of course, but it was
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was fun.
So you were in the Navy station in Washington for how many? 2 years, you said, right?
32 months, actually.
32 months, almost 3 years. Yeah.
So when it came out, a couple of us decided we would be hairdressers.
Okay.
Went to hairdressing school,
Okay.
worked for a while, and then discovered that the shop was not registered.
This was in D.C.
No, it's back home.
Oh, so you came back and you
home.
went back to West Suffield. You
No, I
started.
came back to East Granby.
Oh, okay. Dude, that's what you mentioned.
Right.
Well, in the interview, while you were away,
Right.
your parents moved to
They
East
moved,
Granby.
yeah.
Right. So this
Dad
is your
was
new hometown.
back working with the American Sumatra again.
Okay.
And went to hairdressing school, and after putting in 3 years at the Institute of Living at that time, whatever they call it now, I'm not sure.
Cutting hair there?
Cutting, shampooing, whatever.
So you were a hairdresser at
Right,
the
yeah.
at the hospital.
got a license and
Interesting.
tried that. The object was to get a manager's license,
Okay.
but
So you could open your own shop.
they didn't have a registered shop. Because they didn't have a registered shop, we had not worked in a registered shop, and we had spent 3 years up the creek.
Oh, really? I see. So you put in your 3 years to get the experience you needed,
Right.
with the idea that you could go out and start your own shop.
Yeah, be a
because you had the
manager.
right.
Yeah.
Kind of like in the union they have journeyman and then master and the same thing.
Right.
Any licensed profession you have to
Right.
go through a kind of an apprentice type. So you have. So what did you do? You were after 3 years of
Well, I
college.
thought I didn't know what I would do when I found
Right.
that out. I was really quite upset about that.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I got a job with Command Aerospace,
Okay.
and that worked out very well.
So that was the late 40s.
Yes, let's see, 45, 46, 3 years. That was about 1950.
1950.
50, 53, somewhere around there.
Those were exciting times in aerospace. I mean, there was a lot of things that were changing very quickly, huh? And
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we were in what had been an old, I don't know what you would call it. I don't think it was a manager's house, but I think it was an old boarding house or something that belonged to a tobacco company, because we were over at Bradley Field.
oh, that's where you were actually working.
Yeah.
So Command had a division over there?
Well, yeah, when they started off in some old buildings there.
Oh, see, I always think
Right.
of them as down in Bloomfield.
All right.
They're a big, huge, sprawling place there. But
And as a matter of fact, I wasn't working there too long when they, I don't know, maybe 6 months or a year when they came out with the first helicopter. Flew
Really?
it from the west side of the field over to the east side.
oh, that must have been fun to see, huh?
That was quite a thing.
Those were
Mr.
pretty
Command flew it over himself.
Charlie Command?
Yeah.
That was his name, right? Yeah. I think he's still alive, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
I guess he's not well, but
Yeah.
he's still alive.
But that was, I've seen pictures of it. It was a pretty primitive helicopter.
Yeah.
It doesn't look anything like they looked at, well, kind of, but.
It was a very good helicopter.
Yeah, it was a fine product you put up there. So what did you do at Command?
Something I had never done before. I ran a Cataumet, which was like a combination adding machine. You could do it with almost anything on it.
So accounting?
No, in the purchasing department.
Okay.
And
What was it called again?
a Cataumeter.
Cataumeter. Like a countometer or something? Countdometer? Okay, so you did that, and how did you do that for an extended period of time?
And well, I was there for 35 years, I think, very close to it.
They got rid of the countdometer by the time you left.
They sure
right?
did. They were bringing in the computers, and I thought that's a time to go.
That was the mid '80s,
Right.
Thereabouts. Okay, so you were married. Where'd you meet your husband?
I was married in 1956.
Okay. Did he work at Command?
Right.
Okay.
And my husband worked there too, as a matter of fact. That's
Okay.
where I met him.
Right.
And we were married for 24 years. And he died. And
Mhm.
shortly after he had retired, he was older than I, and he had retired, but didn't have too much of a period of time after he retired, that he lived.
Okay.
But it worked out okay.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Okay, so let's think back to your early impressions of East Granby. Okay, when you first came back from the war, it was all agricultural, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah. Do you remember much about the center of town? Anything that pops up into your memory?
Well, Route 20 didn't exist.
Right. Right.
And of course, it was a different configuration at that point. It was actually, there was a road that went primarily, where the way Route 20 goes now by the church, there was a road that did go down to the church, but then it kind of circled around and came over to School Street.
Okay.
And went from there. But I thought a nice enough town. I liked it there.
The setup in the center of town was more of a conventional, old-style downtown.
Right, exactly.
Where you had a few businesses.
There was, I think, one business. One business, I think.
Yeah.
There was a grocery store and a soda shop.
Okay.
And a garage.
Yep.
I think Prevost was there. And the fire station finally was in where Northwest Bank is now.
Mm-hmm.
But the building caught fire, and that was the end of that. And they put the bank there, and finally they got the other buildings in the actual center there now.
Right. They've kind of kept some and built some different
business,
ones. So so it was a fairly conventional downtown and
a regular old, country downtown.
If you were to, what do you think's changed the most in your extended period in East Granby here?
Well, everything has changed. Everything's completely different than when I went there. I mean, the agricultural aspect of the town is pretty well shot, and
right.
There's mostly houses now.
Yeah.
And that is, in a way, is a shame because it was a much better looking town when there were open fields.
Farms are attractive. Farms. Look nicer than houses. You still see some of that. Or you go over to Ellington or Summers, you can see the landscape. Even that's filling in. But a couple of years ago, it was still out there. Yeah. A lot more trees too. Huh? You could see for a lot further when there was no. Yeah. I can remember seeing a picture that my mother had of Suffield from the center near the Bridge Street School there.
Yeah.
And you could see pretty clear across town.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it was high enough elevation. Now you can't see more than a quarter mile down the road, because all the... But different times, right?
Right.
So is there anything you'd like to... I mean, obviously the agricultural transition to suburbia is difficult to change. I mean, that's the reality. Anything that... any characters you remember from those days that stand out, people that you remember? Seems like everybody always has somebody to say, I remember this guy or this lady. And
I remember Effie Miller. She was a town clerk.
Yep.
And
what were your impressions of her?
I thought she was great.
Was she?
Yeah.
She was a character?
Well, yeah, it was more or less a character, I guess. Yeah. But she was quite efficient, I thought. I was finding fault with her, that's for sure.
Got the job done? Yeah.
She seemed to do very well. I remember Lily Root. I think the first town meeting I went to, I don't know what the problem was. Maybe it was Ron Carey coming to town.
Right.
And in between various times, my dad had worked for the highway department, the state highway. And he knew Ron Carey, I guess, from that. At that point, I think they were form builders or something for some of the projects. So naturally, he knew him, and he thought it would be good to get him in town. It would be tax relief, one thing or another. It would be a big help.
Yeah.
And I can remember Lily Root saying, "This is my first town meeting, so this is all new to me."
Right.
I don't know what the discussion was about, but I remember him saying, "Well, I suppose the next thing we'll know, with so many outsiders coming in, we'll have to have sidewalks from my house," and he lived right north of the town, all the way down to the center.
Oh, right. Didn't want to hear about that, huh?
No, I didn't want to hear that. And I thought to myself, it hasn't happened yet, but when they built new houses up on Mountain Road in West Suffield, they have a sidewalk in front of those houses. I don't know where it goes to, but they have it. Right. That's the first thing that went through my mind when I saw that sidewalk. My God, if Lily Root could see
He's turning over in his grave there. Yeah, no, that's something that they seem to have resisted for quite a long time in East Granby. There aren't a lot of sidewalks. But that's funny. It's funny that something like that would be a stick, kind of where he would go with his logic there.
Right. Well, he was right. I mean, the thing that amazes me, and I suppose it's human nature.
Yeah.
People move out from the city.
Yep.
Oh, they got to get out in the country. Number one, they don't like the cow barns.
Right.
Or the horse barns.
Right.
There's probably odor in the neighborhood, and that's offensive.
Yeah.
And they don't know too much about that. And they want all of the conveniences they had in the city, and you wonder why in the name of the Lord they didn't stay there.
Right, right. That seems to be a common theme, right? I mean, everybody has a certain image of a town,
Right.
and it's what their town is. And I think people are generally resistant to change,
Yeah.
on either end, right? The new people don't want to lose what they had before, and the older folks that have been there don't want to see it change from what they're used to, right? So I think East Granby's found a fairly smooth transition there in some ways. I mean, there's always there's always going to be the friction.
Right.
It could be Mr. Root complaining about sidewalks, or it could be somebody complaining about a new building being built in the center of town. You know, but that friction's always there, and that's kind of normal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I guess it is.
So.
And then nobody wants a big box store in town.
Yeah, yeah.
But really, some of those things you have to put up with if you're going to have any,
Yeah.
progress.
It's definitely a balance, and I think that's always the struggle between new and old development and no development, between having enhancing the tax base and trying to struggle without doing that.
Right.
And it usually comes to a head at different times, and it kind of, decisions are made, and it kind of, but it's always just going to come back.
Right.
There'll always be some new development coming down the road.
That's
it's
right.
just how you do. Do you think East Granby's dealt with that fairly well in the way?
Yes, I think actually they have. Because if you ride down 187, it still looks like there are a lot of farms.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on there, but I mean, there's open space.
Well, you have that whole Cowles Park that will never be developed. That was a gift to that really helped to set the standard. Right. And in the north end now you have the East Granby Farms. That's a huge tract of land that's preserved forever. And then you have your whole Metacomet Ridge area, which is nice. So they've done it. I think they've done a good job balancing it out.
They've done very well, I think.
Yeah. Now, what if there was anything that, this is always an interesting question because nobody has hindsight's 20/20. But if there was one thing you could do different, what would it be? If you could say, okay, I wish they'd never done this, or I wish they had done something different. Is there anything that pops into your head?
Well, I think I know Route 20 is necessary.
Right.
There's no question about that. But I think it did kind of upset things.
Right, right.
Because to me, it's still congested in the center.
Right. It's too congested?
Well, they got a house that sits almost right on the road.
Right.
And another building that sits almost on the road.
Right at the corner of 20 and 187. Yeah.
In that area there. And of course, you don't want to see the buildings torn down, but on the other hand, it would be much nicer if it was kind of open space there. It would be more attractive.
Yeah.
But that won't happen in my lifetime. That's for sure.
You're in pretty good shape, though. You might see more change than you think there. But
they're going to have to do it awfully fast.
What do you think of the changes they're making? They just they established a village center zone. Do you think that's a good idea to help protect or minimize have some oversight on the development that happens right in the center?
Right.
Do you think that's a good idea? I guess it depends on how it's applied, but.
Well, I think when they have I think they have very nice buildings as far as their town hall and the
community building,
senior center there, and the community, senior community center. I think that in the library, all of that, the buildings are compatible. I think that all looks very well.
Yeah.
But then they're kind of stymied, If they want to expand there isn't that much room to maintain that that effect.
Mm. Yeah, I guess there's only so far you can go.
Yeah.
I think the idea is to kind of develop more of a dense downtown, like probably what a more traditional downtown would have been, where you have buildings. I mean, I know what you're saying on Route 20 and 187 where the junction is. That it's a little bit It's not the most attractive corner
Right.
in the world. But if those buildings were moved back 30 feet or were on School Street,
Right.
built like that, and that's, I think, the goal is to make School Street the hub.
Yeah.
And put sidewalks in, even though Mr. Root
They will. I think they're working on that.
Yeah, they're
but
working
they're
on
not
it.
coming from his house.
No, they're not coming all the way to the Roots. But to have that be a more of a pedestrian-friendly area, which I think you establish that. It's very hard to do because nobody wants to give up their own right for what they want to
Right,
develop.
right.
But I think in one small area in town, that can make a huge difference. But anyway,
I imagine it'll eventually come. Something
Yeah.
will happen, and it'll eventually come.
yeah, they're working on it.
And of course, there's always has to be change. It can't stay the same.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be right. It never does, so it can't.
Yeah, that's true. Right. Very few places are static.
Right.
Yeah. So you have, when thinking back to the time that you've been here, I guess that you just referenced that Route 20. You kind of wish that had been configured a little differently, but it's necessary. It did kind of split the town in some ways, instead of being a.
I understood at one time that when they built there's a new stretch of road on 187 from Hatchet Hill into Bloomfield.
Right.
Or not into Bloomfield, but going on past Command down through there.
Right.
I understood it when they came that far to the stoplight at Hatchet Hill. The eventual plan was to continue on to Bradley Field so you wouldn't have to go through the center of town.
Really? That would be
Which
interesting.
would be really very, very nice.
Yeah.
But of course, in the meantime, they have developed down on the side of the 187,
Yeah.
and the South End Fire Station is there. I mean, all kinds of things have happened in that area.
Yeah, so you couldn't really
So
make
it kind of.
you couldn't make it as much of a thoroughfare as what
Right.
you're describing. Yeah. Although you go a little further down the road, and there's some serious industrial, like it was where Walgreens is, which you mentioned that was where your father actually worked on a tobacco farm, and that was all tobacco land. And,
Yeah, there was tobacco land all down.
and you lived summers.
We lived when we lived in East Granby. He worked for American Sumatra. We lived on the McKinney farm on Spoonville Road.
Okay. Where is that on Spoonville?
We're what they call radio range. Does that mean
Yes,
anything?
yeah.
Okay.
There's a package
There
store
used
there
to,
now, yeah.
Okay, there used to be a White House right there,
Okay.
and that was the house that we lived in.
Yeah, because behind there is still
Right, and the tobacco lots are all in back there.
interesting. Yeah, because that land is still undeveloped back there. It's still tobacco land.
And of course, I'm surprised they haven't tried to develop that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's houses.
Yeah, right. But it does. I think that's a question of where that's going to end up, because that's a pretty substantial piece of land.
Yeah.
So when you were, have you been involved with any local activities in town? Are you a member of any church, or are you?
I go to the Congregational Church. I belong there.
Yep.
I'm on the Commission of Aging.
Okay, that's an interesting group.
Yes,
Pretty lively group. It really is. They seem to be pretty active in town.
we have a very good director. We really do. Diane Tracy.
Yeah.
And she does a fantastic job. She really does.
That's good.
And we're getting more people. She's getting more people out all the time to
Yeah.
activities.
I noticed more and more cars at the senior center there
Yeah.
when they had activities going on lately. So
we're in the process. We have been, I think ever since I've been on the commission, they have tried to get a building that actually was for the seniors.
right.
I think Granby has a beautiful setup.
They really do. Yep.
And we would certainly like something like that. Of course, we don't have the population, and we don't have the money either.
Well, part of the plan that they were talking about doing about a year and a half ago, was it, with